So these are some of the common mistakes that I see in bow holds among some of my students. The big one is a straight thumb. And a straight, rigid thumb. The thumb is always going to be flexible. Not saying the thumb is always going to be curved or straight. It just has to be flexible. And when you're practicing these bow holds and your bow hold flips, try to see if your thumb is nice and flexible. Give it a little doorbell ring. Ding dong. Make sure they're nice and floppy. So that's number one. So number two is actually the fingers facing directly towards the floor. And you never want your fingers to be facing directly towards the floor, because you always want to have a little bit of a pronation in your fingers and a little bit in your wrist as well. And pronation basically just means having your palm turned towards inwards. In other words, just check that they are at a diagonal, kind of facing the 4 or 5 o'clock direction. And you should never have this. You see how my fingers are facing towards the ground? So really lean on the index finger. Imagine the index finger is nice and heavy and you're just leaning on it. So number 3 is actually something called supination. And supination is when it's the opposite of pronation. Your palm is facing away from you. And this is usually what I see, kind of leaning on that pinky. And you never want to lean on that pinky. Make sure you're pronating and leaning on your index finger. Sometimes what I like to do is put a little dot on your index finger. So you're going to want to dot it right above this big knuckle over here. And place a little dot right there. So my index finger is actually a little bit distorted. So as you can see, I placed my dot right above the knuckle. That way you'll know when you're pronating that you kind of always want to cover that dot like this. So that's just a little tip for you when you're practicing how to hold the bow.